Last round. Fight!
Hello and welcome to the Last Round Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Saunders. Joining me as always, my co-host, Anton Austin. We're in Newark at Sugden's gym to speak with ex-world champion kickboxer and head coach of Sugden's gym, Dean Sugden. Thank you for having us down, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I want to talk about you as a fighter. How would you describe your style when you were a fighter?
I haven't been asked that question for a while. I've not really thought about it either, but I would say effective. You know, I always like to get the job done where I could. So I got blessed with short arms and short legs. So really, as a kickboxer, I wasn't actually destined to have much success. So I always had to find a way to win. And I think that's what I've tried to sort of teach all my fighters. It's not about how long your arms are or how long your legs are. You just have to find a way. So we have to be able to adapt in there. So I guess if it was anything, it would be like a style that was able to adapt. But I had a will to win, probably beyond most people, and I think that's what got me through most of my fights.
I watched your fight on YouTube against Daniel Kaufman.
Oh yeah, well, you know what? It's funny because that fight disappeared. I couldn't find it anywhere, which is really gutted about because that was probably one of my finest moments. Everything just went right on that night. Yeah, I mean, I just felt $1 million.
You had a big crowd supporting you as well, didn't you? There,
it was incredible. You know, I feel blessed because I've only ever fought in my hometown twice. Once was that fight, which was a win for the world title against a German, and I knocked him out in round 4. It was scheduled to go 12. He was a WK European champion, I was the ISK European champion, and we fought for the vacant WK world, and it couldn't have gone any better. It was like a dream come true, and the crowd was mental. I mean, afterwards, people were literally coming up to me. I was mobbed. It was like being a superstar. It was just something else.
Does that make it easier for you? You know, I know we've asked your sons as well, but like being kind of the home fighter and having the crowd there, does it spur you on that extra bit?
Yeah, for sure. But that said, when I fought Lex, it didn't help me because I got beat. So we had about 3,000 there that night. But I think what helps you is if you're a fighter and you can fight in any environment, then when you have that support, it's like a huge boost. It's a bit like being on a bike and getting a tailwind. You know, it's nice. It's like, oh, that's come at the right time. You know, if you turn around and you face the headwind, it'd be like, oh, fuck it hell. But if you get that tailwind, it's like, oh yeah, this is good.
It was interesting because we spoke to Frankie Hudders and he was the ISK world champion at one stage, and he kind of made an interesting point about winning the world titles. He was saying, you know, he thought his life was going to change drastically, and you know, it didn't really change at all. I was wondering if, you know, is that the same for you? Did your life change at all when you became world champion?
I know where Frankie's coming from there, and I think that was something that I was conscious of when I was training the lads, to change the focus from actually winning a title to actually earning some serious money, because it's a hard sport, and I guess that's why the boys went down the K1 kickboxing glory rules route, because there's more money involved. So I think, I was so focused, like Frankie probably was at the time, on winning a world title, and obviously the bodies were the WK, the ISK, they were the bodies to win. And I think we just saw that as being like, when you've done that, then the world's going to change. It's going to be like this amazing place. And of course, I think Ronnie Green once said, it's a bit of metal. You know, that's ultimately what it is. But obviously to the people that have won it, it's a little bit more than that. There's a lot of sweat, blood and tears that's gone into it. But for me now, the focus has got to be on making sure if they choose boxing, kickboxing, MMA, whatever route they choose, and they have to choose it because it's a hard sport. They're all hard sports. They've got to want to do it because... And I think my job as their manager and trainer is to help them maximise their time in that sport. So for me, that's not about winning a belt. It's about making some money. Yeah. And I think so far I've done a fairly good job because I think Chad's probably earned more money as a kickboxer than any other fighter in the UK, both on UK shows. And I watched a few of your podcasts earlier, and you know, people talking about a few £100. You know, Chad, when he fought on Main Event, got paid a lot of money. I don't embarrass anybody and get anybody into any trouble, but you could put a note on what those guys were talking about. You know, so it's a big difference. But then, you know, he was headlining the event and he was also selling the event. You know, so I think there was a recognition towards not just him being a good fighter, but also the fact that he put himself out there, he marketed himself well, and he sold the show. Yeah, I think that's important because you hear a lot of time people saying, "Oh, well, it's the promoter's job to promote the event." Well, actually, we've all got a role to play. You know, fighters, coaches. You know, if we want our sport to grow, we have to go out there and push it and promote it. And get other people involved that wouldn't ordinarily be involved or want to watch it.
So we talked about money then, both in your day and now. How do you think the purses differ from then to now?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think in the sort of like local UK scene, probably not a lot, which is scary.
Yeah.
But I know when Amari was talking on one of the earlier podcasts, and he was saying the biggest purse he'd had was on Road to Glory, which is the event I put on. And you think, wow, really? That was his most money that he's ever earned. So I don't think the purses have changed much because, again, it depends on the level of fighter, because Chad did earn quite a lot more money than that when he was fighting in the UK. But I think abroad it's different. I mean, obviously K1 in its heyday was giving some huge paydays. When it was in Japan, there was some big sponsors chucking a lot of money at it, and there was like a big draw from other styles, other disciplines, and they were putting big prize money up for grabs for the 16-man tournament. I think those days have gone, but I think Glory is still obviously paying, probably the top dollar. And it's fairly common knowledge what the UFC are paying, and that's good money.
I think I really like that about the UFC, that they do let people know like what they're giving people. I think it's good to be that transparent, really.
I think it's everything now, because if you want to buy a house, you need to know how much money you're earning, don't you? Everybody wants to know what you're earning. And as a fighter, that's got to be one of the biggest difficult single things. If you're a young man, growing up, it's like, do I work for a living or do I be a fighter? Well, you could earn probably as much money being a fighter and doing some personal training one-on-ones, but can you get a mortgage? Probably not as easily. So I think that's a big thing, because we all have to progress and move on. Fighting is a big part of our lives, but at the same time, you want a house. You might want to start a family, and to do all of that, you need to be able to get a mortgage. And it's something maybe you would like to think, if we could all start working together a little bit more. Often try and reach out to people, and just say that, because I think everybody's, I don't know, it's a UK thing. We knock each other a bit too much.
People don't like helping each other, do they?
It's a weird mentality. I don't get it. I mean, I believe genuinely success breeds success. So if we get somebody down here from another gym, anybody who's ever come down here from another gym, I've helped them as much as I can. And I've always extended that invitation to other fighters, because why not? Because the better they are, the better we become. We have to, because you can't stand still that way. So it's something that scares some people, but genuinely it excites me. So that's I think, but it's easier said than done, and to get everybody working like that.
Yeah. The other thing about purses as well, another thing which Frank said, not to keep harping on about Frank, but he also said that like he was getting back then what people are getting now, but now the ticket prices for like a Yakar event are like £60-70. Back then they were like £30. So the fighters aren't getting the extra money or anything like that. Yeah,
it's a good point. I mean, obviously, I can't believe Frankie's taking over my interview, but I love Frankie. He's a good lad, isn't he? But the thing is with Frankie, he just tells it how it is, and that is how it is. And when like Amari spoke about, Road to Glory, that's like one of my events. So I'm sat here thinking, well, actually, I know we pay good money. We don't make a lot of money out of our shows, and I know a lot of promoters say that, but we also had to follow certain international guidelines laid out by Glory, which had a cost attached to them. So it didn't cost me anything to put on the event, but to do all the marketing, to actually put it on in a TV format type style show. Obviously, you've got additional costs involved. Yet, we still paid probably more money than anybody else. So I think, to that point, I think Frankie's got a good one. Promoters probably need to be less greedy and actually start paying the fighters a decent purse, because when we put on an event, it's been about promoting the fighter and giving them an opportunity to fight on a bigger and better stage. I'm pleased to say, we've had some big names come to Newark over the years and fight on some of our shows, not just against our lads, but just because I'm a fan of good fighters. So let's get them on. Let's promote them, and if we can help them get to that bigger stage, then happy days.
Do you think you being a former fighter and world champion is a big factor in when you starting these shows and stuff like that? Do you think there's promoters out there who possibly have never been in the ring, who then made us see it as a chance for financial gain and whatnot?
I think absolutely, because you always see it from a fighter's perspective. I always remember the shows I got looked after on. That you turned up, there was organised, there was well structured, the weighing was good, the medicals was good, you felt safe, you felt comfortable, the show started on time, and you got the deal that you were supposed to get. I think the days of sort of like And it does happen still, where people don't get paid properly, when they're supposed to. Yet people still support these guys, and I don't get that. I'll be honest, because I personally won't work with anybody that takes the piss. You don't need to anymore. There's too many people out there doing it. So we'll just work with some good people. That might be a bit controversial because there are people out there that just for whatever reason, I would sell my house and pay people who turned up to fight on my show than not pay people on my show. It was as simple as that, And I've had events which have been literally to the wire, where I've had people come up to me at the end of the night and go, "Dean, are you all right? Can you cover all your costs?" People that I've known for a long time in the business, people that I'm actually paying for their services because they knew how difficult it was, and I just looked up and went, "Well, we haven't filled that section," so that's a bit of a concern. But the fact that my missus is here and not running down the road means we're all right. So but and we've always managed to do that, but I think that's so important. You just got to do what you say you're going to do. Don't make a promise and not deliver it. But that, I think that just comes down to maybe how I am as a person. You're going to say something, you got to do it. You can't not.
I think we spoke off camera as well about a few incidents, where I should say experiences where you've been abroad and stuff like that, to do with like weigh-ins and whatnot and rental cars and stuff. So I think that all have an impact on you as a promoter again, when you want to look after these guys and make sure they have
listen, abroad, I think over in England we generally speaking we do a good job, but I'm not saying every time I've been abroad we haven't been looked after, but I tell you this, my little experience in Germany was a horrendous one from start to finish, and we were helping them guys out. We helped them out last minute, and I didn't mention it earlier, but when it came to getting paid, literally I had to walk into a room full of security guys and the promoter, and he went, "What do you want?" And I went, "You know what I want." He says, "I'm covering Chad's purse," and he was like, "What are you going to do about it?" And I went, "Well, I'm a fighter." And I just looked at him, and I looked at these guys, and I thought, well, this is going to be interesting, isn't it? Eventually, I don't know whether he'd probably say, I was just having a bit of fun with you. But it didn't feel like fun at the time. And I'll tell you what wasn't fun was the fact that he left us at the venue after the fight, and he didn't make sure we got transport back to the hotel, which was something I would never ever do. You just don't do that. We didn't even know where it was because it was all lastminute.com. So we literally had to try and find someone that spoke English. Well, fortunately, the MC was walking out at the same time. We were like the last to leave, and the MC went, "What's up?" And I went, "I got no idea where we're staying." He went, "You're joking?" And I went, "Well, we're staying with all the other fighters, but I've got no idea where it is." He says, "Well, have they not got transport for you to?" He says, "No." He says, "All right, let me translate to somebody and get you back at least to the hotel." So
mad times.
Did you encourage your three sons to get into fighting, or was it something they did off their own back?
They did it off their own back. Obviously we had the gym open, so this gym's been, we've been established as a club since around about 88, 89, but we came here in 2000, and when we came here they were all quite young, I think Chad must have been 6 years of age. Bailey literally, I think we just dropped him in the gym on the day he was born, so hence the reason why it's a little bit crazy. But I've never encouraged them. Obviously, I've enjoyed the fact that they've wanted to do it. I just think it's such a hard sport. It's a difficult one to encourage somebody into. They've got to really want to do it. I've got a daughter as well, and she's trained and she can handle herself and she can look after herself. But she always wanted to fight, but she never wanted to train. And I says, "Listen, with your three brothers, there's no way you can have a fight without training because they're going to think they're up against one of the lads. So you're going to get a tough first fight. So you need to be in shape." But she's never actually had a fight, but I'm pleased because she's got other interests, and it's not all about fighting. It would appear it is because obviously three of them are doing it, but she's a singer and a budding actress, so
nice.
How difficult is it to coach your three sons in three different disciplines?
Yeah, it's challenging. I would say it's been hard work. It's hard work coaching them anyway. The father and son thing often gets talked about. Remembering when you're a dad and remembering when you're a coach. I think I've done it badly at times, but I think overall I've probably done not a bad job. In different disciplines, I see crossing over into a different discipline is a real challenge. It excites me. It really does. And I've always cross-trained with people over the years. You know, I always used to spar and train with boxers. Yeah. I always used to spar and train with Muay Thai fighters, you know, and I've got some real good friends. Andre McIntyre, you know, we trained together for a long time. Martin Carr, another one. We used to cross-train. Mark Elwood up in Hull. And for me, that experience was vital into ultimately understanding what it took to sort of create a system that worked, because that's what it's all about. I'm not like, oh, my style's better than his style, or kickboxing's. I'm a striking coach, so I try and understand every aspect. So when it came to the MMA at the beginning, that was tough with Regis because he was fighting very quickly at such a high level in MMA, you know, because he was so exciting and they just projected him forward. I was like, right, okay, so why do you do certain things? You know, I was questioning some of the MMA guys that have got a lot of experience, saying, why do you do that? And if they didn't give me a valid reason for it, I'd say, well, ditch it. Because some of the stuff they did striking-wise and movement-wise, I'd think, what are they doing that for? That puts you at risk. So if they couldn't give me a valid reason for doing it, I'd say, all right, then when somebody else does that, we'll just jump on them, because to me that's just a mistake. You know, you got to keep yourself ready at all times in a fight. Split-second decisions can change fights.
Especially that the little gloves and, you know, often things, even the low kicking and the striking. You know, people like throwing body kicks, pulls from Muay Thai to MMA. It's a lot different. I've seen you on some of your fights throwing axe kicks and stuff like that. Some people, my MMA coach, think, no, you won't throw that in MMA.
But you know, I think it's going back to what we was talking about earlier about just adapting and being able to adapt, because you know, I'm as a fighting style, I wouldn't criticise any one style over somebody else's. It's all about who gets a hand raised and who's effective. You know, ultimately, obviously you've got to entertain. I think that's important. You know, it is an entertainment business, and I think we all have a responsibility to go out there and, you know, make sure people go, you know what, he's a sick fighter. He's a good fighter, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. But you want to get your hand raised, because his second place is losing, isn't it? And there's no other sport like that. You know, it's horrible. You know, it's not nice, and nobody wants to do it. And you know, I don't enjoy it as a coach either. I hate losing. I'm the worst loser in the world. Everybody knows that.
Seen you in the corner a few times when you know some of the glory fights. What
would you say you're like in the corner? Do you think there's a time to like be aggressive, a time to be chilled? Because I've seen fights as well where, you know, you look completely chilled and relaxed in the corner, and you know, you're just relaying information and stuff. Do you think there's a time for both?
Depends on the fighter, because certain fighters respond differently to you. So, like, I mean, if I just talk my own sons for a minute, Bailey, you know, he needs me to be quite forceful and like, you know, aggressive with him, because he you know, Bailey's a very simple instructional sort of type fighter. You know, we work very well closely together, and he knows, you know, exactly what I want him to do. Whereas Chad's already worked it out, worn the t-shirt, and told me what's going on.
Too slick.
Exactly. So the approach with Chad is, how are you feeling? You know, what you tell me what's going on, and let me know if there's anything I can help you. Because quite often he'll come back and he'll tell me to just chill out. You know, and he'll say, Dad, I've got this boxed off. You know, and I'm like, all right, go on then. Seriously, I mean, you know, he's come back to the corner and like literally said some stupid things to me, and I've just thought, what is this all about? I mean, in his last fight, I couldn't get through to him. It wasn't Chad. You know, he sat here earlier, and you know, he's having a shoulder operation on November 17th. He ain't going to sit here and talk about that, because he's not a fighter that gives excuses. But all I'm saying is that was not the best version of Chad. He said that, but 100% it wasn't. But when he gets in there and it's the best version, then he'll do so much better. And I love the fact that he's not sat here and said, oh, well, I've got this, I had that. You know, I just lost to the better man. So give him credit as well, even though he loves himself. Mr. Pitters.
What do you think about, I know Shakan Pitter's coach had come out and said before the fight that this is kind of the peak of his career, he won't fight any higher than the British title. What did you make of that?
I thought it was very interesting. I mean, I commented on that. It was a very strange thing to say. And it's difficult to comment on that now, because obviously we didn't do what we thought we were going to do. So I thought it was a weird thing to say, but I think I get what he was saying. I mean, look, we can't knock him because he's got a victory over Chad. But outside of Chad, who else has he fought? You know, we know how good Chad is. We all know how good Chad is. His pedigree's there, not just in the boxing ring, but just in the fight game.
Yeah.
So respect to Shakan Peters. He's got a win over Chad Sugden. The question mark for me will be what happens next. You know, I think the Craig Richards fight's an interesting one. And I know he ain't gonna like it when I say this, but I think Craig Richards wins. I really do. But you know, hey, Shakan might destroy him and be the next Thomas Hitman Hearns that he thinks he's going to be. And if he is, then good luck to him.
Yeah.
And genuinely, good luck to him. Because if he's that good, then he's going to go on and compete, you know, a high level. But, you know, at 31, really? I don't know. If he was going to get there, why isn't he already there?
Yeah.
But then he did start late in the sport, so maybe. I mean, I'll be honest, it's not really my place to like or dislike somebody, but you know, in the fight game, you meet some good people. But I think the problem with him is he doesn't respect anybody else around him.
Yeah.
And he's a very arrogant person. And, you know, and confidence is one thing, but arrogance is another. And I just think every dog has his day, don't they?
Yeah.
But he had his day. And, if they never fight again, he'll be able to say he beat Chad.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't Chad be relevant again? I think he would. You know, like Chad's 26. He'll come again. He'll learn from all those things that weren't quite right for that fight. And no excuses, but things weren't right. And anybody who knows Chad, anybody who watched that fight knows that wasn't the best version of Chad.
Yeah.
I couldn't even communicate to him in the corner. You know, he's normally, you know, in complete control, but without going into too much detail now, because he obviously don't want to talk about it, I'm not going to talk about it, but he was not himself. So as a result of not being himself and not being responsive in the corner in a 12-round fight at that level, we had to get everything right to win that fight, because we're in the away corner. We're fighting against Shakan Peters, and I think we needed to completely dominate that fight to get anything out of it. And maybe when things didn't quite go as expected, but I think it was before the fight even started for me. We lost that fight. But I'm not going to go into too much.
Do you ever have any, obviously being a father and, you know, you have 3 sons who compete, just say for example Bailey, you know, you might have other stuff going on outside of the gym, and do you ever have any worries, or, you know, have you ever been close to like thinking, you know, maybe we might have to pull out of this fight and whatnot, or I'm being too hard on him at this point, I need to take you know, a back step and lay off him a little bit? You know, do you ever have them? It must be hard, really hard as a father and a coach. Yeah,
it is. I think you'll never ever get looked after like you will by your dad.
Yeah. Because,
you know, let's face it, as a dad, you care about your kids more than anything else in the world. That is the single most important thing. So you only want the best for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of these coaches that will kind of like say, right, you've got to train with me.
Yeah.
You've got to be managed by me. I actually, to be brutally honest, I could step back from managing and coaching my lads tomorrow.
Right.
If there was somebody who was going to come along and help them get to where they want to get to, because first and foremost, I'm the dad. Yeah. So I want the best for them. So if somebody came along and I thought could do a better job in any of those areas, then we'd be working with them. Yeah. Like, you know, we are doing. You know, Chad works quite closely now with a guy called John Costello and Talib Hussein over in Birmingham, and that works really well. We work well together. You know, we started working with them a little bit when Chad started sparring with Jamie Cox. The relationship sort of grown and developed from there. And I think it's good for Chad to sort of, you know, work with other people and experience other people.
I think that's
you know.
really good for you. It shows your humility as well as a coach, that you know, you're happy for your fighter to be able to do that. You know, most coaches wouldn't probably do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing. I think if nothing else, for them to go and understand as well, you know, like what you know, what it's like outside of these 4 walls. You know, and because I did, you know, I went and cross-trained and trained at lots of different gyms and with different people, and I learned so much. And that's the beautiful thing. You know, I think if you've got a good attitude, and I always say, you know, kids, stay humble, stay grounded, and always learning, then you can learn from everything. And I think that's what, you know, Chad losing, you know, I know people talk about it, and it's a bit corny, but you do learn more from a loss than you do from a win. And, you know, there's no doubt about it. We lost that last fight. So when he comes back, he'll be back even stronger than he was before.
Yeah. Talking about that fight, obviously we asked Chad what it was like fighting under COVID. What was it like coaching under COVID with that visor and the mask, looking like a dentist?
Horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I mean, it just felt really restrictive. Yeah. You know, it felt like, you know, it was a weird night for lots of reasons. It was weird. What made it weirder? Was it the mask? Was it the fact there was no audience? I mean, when Chad fought in Dubai, it was very quiet and very weird, but there was a bit of an atmosphere. But there was a lot of things that were supposed to happen that happened a little bit differently. Now, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so when I'm going into an environment, I like to understand what I'm going into.
Yeah.
So, normally for a British title fight, you have 4 people in the corner. That's just how it is. We were allowed 2 people in that corner and told we had to have a house second. But the house seconds were appointed by Shaq's manager,
Right.
which I thought was a bit unfair.
Yeah.
But I was also told they were supposed to be ringside all night, and then they weren't. So a lot. 2 people are in the ring, the gladiators, they're fighting each other. But you just want, where possible, an even playing field.
Yeah.
And if it's not an even playing field, if I know about something in advance, then I can get myself ready for it.
Yeah.
I can prepare for it. But when I'm
Going
sort
into
of-
the unknown a little bit.
yeah, and it was weird. It was just to sort of summarise it. I mean, look, Mick Hennessy was a brilliant guy because, when we stepped in at short notice to take the fight, when Craig first pulled out, he did the right thing. He was an honourable man. He gave us the opportunity to sort of take the fight. But it was weird. It was weird in that environment. As a coach, it's got to be weird as a fighter. It's very strange, especially when you're somebody like Chad or even myself who's used to, we're used to fighting in big stadiums, aren't we? We're used to sort of having lots of people cheering, or booing, to have nothing, was strange, was odd. And I think it does take something away from the performance. But especially if you're an emotive type person, if you buzz off people, sometimes people just quite loners, aren't they? But it's like this lockdown. I mean, this is great today because you guys have come to see us. And I'm like, wow, I've got some company.
Human contact.
Exactly, yeah.
So we talked to Bailey about the Boy Nazarov fight, and I kind of wanted to get your perspective from the coach's side. That obviously he said, he was kind of wobbled a bit in the first round.
I've never heard him admit that before.
Did you think that? Could you see that from the outside? And if so, like, what was your advice to him after a round like that? Because obviously it's a 3-round fight, and if you're a round down, how do you plan for the next 2 rounds after that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. That was a scary fight because obviously Boy Nazarov has got such a reputation and he's got such a great KO ratio. Definitely the hardest hitting featherweight in the world.
He doesn't actually look it though, does he? When you look at him, it's like
weird. But weirdly enough, after that fight, I'll come back to your question. But after that fight, when they were sat waiting to see the doctor, he didn't look like a winner. He was sat there and he said something to his coach, and I was like, "What's he saying?" And his coach says, "How old is Bailey?" And I said, "I can't remember if he was like 19 or something at the time." And I said, 19. And he said, he had obviously told Anvar what he said, and Anvar said something else, but I didn't understand what he said. And he said, "What did he say?" He says he doesn't want to fight Bailey again. He says, every time he hit Bailey, he hurt. As in, every time he hit Bailey, he hurt himself. He says, when he gets older, he says, no. He says, no, I don't want to fight him when he gets older. He says, that'll do, he says, like that. And I was like, wow, but Bailey, like when he fought Chen Long Zhang, and he beat Chen Long Zhang comfortably, and he was newcomer of the year for Glory in that year, and Bailey smashed him.
He's a good fighter, man.
He's a very good fighter. He beat Panikos, didn't he?
Yeah. His left knees and
I think because a lot of people look at Bailey and underestimate Bailey. They really, really do. And like that fight for me was Bailey like on his top game, on his A game. And afterwards, he was in such a mess, that Chen Long Zhang, at the end of that fight. He was literally in with the doctors for ages. He looked like he'd been in a tournament. And Bailey's like dancing down the corridor. He must have been thinking, what is this weird kid from England all about? Why is he bouncing around? What was your question, sorry, then?
When he got knocked down.
When he got
so
knocked down, but when he got like kind of
wobbled. So when he got wobbled, because I thought, oh my God, what a knee. I mean, it was an incredible shot that he got caught with. And, he caught him flush on the chin. And as Bailey backed up to the ropes, he managed to just duck underneath the left hook, which is obviously Anvar's favourite shot. And then he sort of stumbled him to the floor, which Bailey sort of jumped up, and I thought, oh, he's hurt. Yeah. But he did disguise it very, very well. And at the end of the first round, obviously, I said to him, like, how you feeling? And he says, yeah, I'm fine. I says, yeah. He says, no. Because that's Bailey, and I no. Refusing to acknowledge any kind of pain or hurt at all. And I'm thinking, right. So we got out there, we got ourselves together a little bit in composure, because there was no panic. because I thought it's not been counted. So, you know, let's just crack on with the fight.
Yeah.
And the second round, he did really well. But at the end of the second round, when they put the scores up, we kind of didn't read the scores properly. It was difficult to actually understand whether Bailey was 2 down or it was 1-1. We didn't realise we'd won the second round. So we sent him out there to try and knock Anvar out. So it made for a great fight.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody at Glory loved it. You know, and all the fans loved it because there were just 2 guys trying to like take each other out. You know, but it was like a 19-year-old versus a man. You know, fighting him at his strengths as well.
Where was it? Where was that fight?
Where was it?
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago. Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah. Just came to me.
So another one of Bailey's fights that I wanted to ask you about was the Ulyanov fight with the accidental headbutt stoppage. I know after the fight you could like lip read what you were saying. You're like, this is fucking bollocks, whatever you're saying. Like, looking back now, do you think that it was still bollocks, or do you understand, or give you a better understanding of what happened?
I'll be honest. I still believe it should have gone to the scorecards. That was completely new to me. That ruling, and I questioned it. I mean, there's no point complaining, but I questioned it, and nobody could really. You know, I think the referee made a mistake. Personally, I don't know why he made that mistake. But in terms of like the impact that had on Bailey's, you know, career, you know, and what he could earn, because he gets a win bonus, you know, which is quite dramatic, and then his purse also jumps to another level when he wins.
Yeah.
So it's quite a significant decision that he took. And given that we took that fight, I mean, Bailey was like a pretty important person because he was obviously the main UK Glory fighter at that time when they came back to the UK. But he was injured, and Glory knew he was injured. But when I say Glory knew, you know, Core Hemmers knew. We brought him into confidence because there was a real concern he wasn't going to be able to fight. And I said, but Bailey, we're not pulling out. I'm only telling you because I don't want to turn up. That's a shit situation to do, is turn up, you know, and then say nearer the time. But the doctors are saying to him he shouldn't be fighting. But he was lucky enough to sort of get himself in, I won't say shape, because that would be a lie. I mean, you know, if you look at his body in that fight, I mean, I remember taking his fight shorts from Booster to the actual photo shoot, and he couldn't even get them on.
Right.
At the photo shoot, that's the day before the weigh-in.
Yeah.
I'm like, Betty, you can't even fit in these, never mind fighting them. And he went, no, I'll be all right. And we did these photos in this photo shoot, and I was like, mate, James Law does the photography at Glory. I says, you got some airbrushing to do. You got to get some
that Photoshop out.
Yeah, get that Photoshop. Give him a 6-pack. Give him something. But you know, you can't put him on looking like it was terrible. Honestly, he looked in terrible shape. But he's a fighter, you know. And Bailey will always come and have a fight, and I think that's why Glory like him so much. You know, those 9 fights. You know, we haven't always had like loads of notice, but you know, he's just took them, and he should have had probably 7 wins. You know. He lost against Sagari. He had a bad night that night. All the other fights have been, I mean, Fairtex was not a good performance from Bailey either, so I wasn't happy with him on that night. But, you know, they're all learning fighters for Bailey. He's learning in the fast lane, and he definitely is. He's young enough to bounce back from it. He's never been rolled over. You know, nobody's ever sort of like looked like they could absolutely destroy him or tear him apart. And the losses have been all close, and he's a tough kid, and I believe he's learnt from it. He's staying true now. Outside of the gym, he's doing all the right things. You know, he's got himself a girlfriend. That obviously helps if it's a sensible girl, and she seems a sensible girl. And I think that's important for Bailey because, you know, he's not, he's not being the stereotypical idiot which he was. You know, living up to his nickname, really, bad boy. That's why we changed it to British Bulldog, because we thought, hey, we're not helping the matter here.
Yeah.
He thinks he's got to be a bad boy. It's only a bad boy in the ring, not outside the ring.
Yeah.
But
I think he is definitely, you know, he's flying the flag in terms of UK in Glory. You know, he's a fellow of fighters, but he's got that personality. He's game to come and fight, and you know,
they love him as well. You know, I mean, the audience. I mean, in America, after the 10-pound fight, honestly, he was. Bearing in mind it was in Miami, he was swamped. Straight after that fight, they were all kicking off. Thought it was going to be a riot because they all thought Bailey had won.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I thought,
even the 10-pound supporters were coming up to Bailey after just going, hey mate, you used the business tonight, you was great, I photograph. Honestly, he was absolutely mobbed, and it does obviously help because you don't get your hand raised, it's disappointing, you don't get your win bonus, you don't get, you know, moved up the rankings, and that's disappointing, but then you get the adulation off the fans,
That's good.
and people come up to you and they go, you know what, you was good tonight. You was exciting. That was, and that I think is what he always brings to the party. You know, he's got a spirit that a lot of fighters. You know, he's unbreakable really in that respect. You know, you can't break him. But then with two older brothers like Chad and Regis, it's going to be tough, aren't you?
Yeah,
you got to be.
Yeah, and his dad as well, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. He's had some shit off me in the past. Trust me. I remember him doing some stupid things in that ring with some heavyweights when he was about 12 and 13. Just stood there like taking punches, thinking he was like clever. I went, save that chin for when you need it. So I think I saved his ass because when he got hit by Anvar, if he carried on taking them shots in the gym, he wouldn't have been there.
Yeah. The Glory brief the fighters before the shows and what they expect, and they'll knock off points if you're not working, if you're not aggressive enough, stuff like that. Yeah,
it's really organised. I mean, the actual ISK, there's a guy called Raffles who basically does the fighter briefing. Right. Once upon a time, it was a different team in the US, but then more latterly, the Dutch team travelled to the US because they realised that some of the sort of like decisions in the US probably weren't as good as what they should have been. So they recognised that, and I think that's important because to the spectator, to the average Joe, it's quite an easy scoring system. You know, you either knock somebody out, you knock them down, or you hit them with spectacular and damaging technique. There's no like one technique's better than the other. It's either damaging and spectacular or it's not. And if it's not, then it's just who lands more than the other person. You know, that's it. So there's no real subjectiveness to it. It's fairly simple. So, but yeah, they do a great briefing beforehand, which we've obviously heard a few times now, both with Chad and Bailey. But I always go and I always listen to it. You have to be there anyway, and I always make notes because, you know, depending on which set of officials are actually there.
It might be a bit different.
Yeah, exactly. I won't say it's an interpretation of the rules because the rules are all the same, but sometimes if they forget to mention something, you know, you just sort of like clarify it, especially if you've got somebody who you know likes to clinch or you know likes to sweep, because you can't sweep in Glory. You know, you can push, but you can only push and strike. You can't push just to push. So little things like that. There's no standing 8 count, which, you know, when you look at the Morehouse win, you know, Bailey knew what the rule set was, and we'd planned to slow Bailey down. It was a weird fight because Morehouse had never been stopped, and I said to Bailey, the problem with this fight is, Bailey, I think you'll not stop him. And bear in mind, Bailey ain't got a lot of stoppages, but he's developing. He's a young man developing his power and his technique. And I said to him, we need to take 20-30% off your speed and just give it to your power. And if you watch him in that fight, it's really interesting because he gets a bit carried away because his personality gets a bit excited, and then I shout at him and he slows down, takes stock, and then he hits him with that right hand which we've been working on. And as soon as he landed that right hand, I knew he would finish him because Bailey's like a nightmare. He will give anybody a problem. When we have like the welterweights, top welterweights in the country, or anywhere, you know, like even Tajani, you know, who's a quality fighter at lightweight. When Bailey went out to Holland last time, they did 6 rounds. I mean, he goes out there a lot, sometimes with me, sometimes without me. But when I was there, he did 6 rounds on the bounce with Tajani. You know, and Tajani's no more.
He's tall as well, isn't he?
He's very tall and he's very good. And I think because he's physically bigger than Bailey, you know, he thought, okay, well, I'll bully him. But Bailey was smart, and it just proves to me how good Bailey can be, because it was a very competitive spar. Honestly, it was a very competitive spar. And, you know, somebody comes out to try and bully Bailey, then Bailey, that's when he comes into his own, because Tajani didn't use his skill set. He should have used his skill set, but he didn't. And then Bailey starts making Tajani miss and using sort of like silky skills against Tajani, when on paper you'd think, well, that's impossible.
Because be the opposite, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what the fighter development thing is all about.
I think that's good though, as to see that, you know, and
it's brilliant.
To take a step back and think, whoa, he's developing it.
Absolutely. And that's really what it's all about, because, you know, all those guys that he's fought, when we do them again, we can't make any mistakes. We have to beat him. And the Morehouse fight, you know, was great because we stopped somebody who'd never been stopped before, and he'd been in there with some good lightweights in Glory, and he'd gone the distance. He had been beaten, but he'd never been stopped, and Bailey destroyed him. I mean, one of the commentators thought it was hilarious because obviously at one point, you know, when he was reeling about and he was going all over the place, he says, I've never seen anything like it, because Bailey was like running around the other side of him. As he was spinning around, he was running around before the referee could get in, You know, he didn't give that referee a chance. So
Yeah.
the referee shouted to him, fight back. You know, and then ultimately, you know, it was all over. I mean, some people think he could have probably stopped it a bit earlier. I mean, I think Bailey should have been looking for a highlight reel knockout, you know.
Yeah.
But he was excited. He was getting carried away, wasn't he?
I was thinking that something crazy is going to come when I was watching it, when I seen him like his head go back like that.
Yeah, because he was there for the taking.
Yeah.
You know, to me, Bailey hasn't had a lot of them fights in Glory where he can sort of not relax, but he can just work on a few things. All his fights have been like
Fast pace,
up against
aren't
it.
they?
Yeah, they've been mad fights, and it was nice to get a fight. When Glory gave us, I thought that was a gift of a fight, but I thought, well, hold on a minute. How come he's not getting a gift like some of the other guys get?
Yeah.
Because he was a lightweight coming down to featherweight, and he's a big lightweight. And I'm thinking, so we're getting a bit of a gifty fight, somebody who's got 3 losses in Glory, but he's a good guy, he's strong, he's durable, never been stopped, and he's a lightweight. So coming down to featherweight, that's actually a bit of a banana skin.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
It's not an ideal fight, but we did a good job, and he listened to his dad. And he did a good number on him. It was a good fight. It was. I mean, you know, I know he was buzzing after the fight, and so rightly so.
Yeah.
Rightly so.
You know, when you're traveling around the world as a coach, you know, coaching your sons, do you get a chance to enjoy like these places like Miami or New York, or are you like always on the job, like 24/7?
Yeah. Well, I'm always on the job. Always on the job. That's the first priority. Obviously, the fighter. They've got to come first. But we do like to try and enjoy the place, because you know, it's an unbelievable experience.
Yeah.
You know, Miami that you touched on there. I mean, I've been to Miami before that, but I never really enjoyed it. I'll be honest with you. Oh, that was the best.
Yeah.
Honestly, out of all the places we've been to, I'll include Vegas. Honestly, I
Yeah.
love that Miami. It was just the vibe. It was the location of the arena, the hotel. It was just everything was mint. It was really good. Obviously, we didn't get the decision, but in terms of like venue and that. But then, you know, we've been sport really with Glory, because we've travelled nicely. You know, to some fantastic places. And I remember after the 8-man tournament, taking Cor Hemmers back to the airport, and you know, he came over here and he watched Bailey and that, and he says, "Wow," he says, "that was an incredible performance from Bailey." You know, he didn't win, but he says, to me, he had the hardest route. You know, he said, "Why did you do that?" Because it was me who did it.
Right.
And I says, because I didn't want anybody thinking he was getting gifted anything.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Cor, if he's going to stand the test in Glory, he has to be able to fight these Maxims and people like that and come through it. And he went, wow, he showed amazing spirit. And he says, no, I was really, really impressed. And he says, what do you want? Where do you want to fight? And I says, did you say he was putting on a show on at Madison Square Garden? And he went, yeah. I went,
I'll take that.
can we have some of that, please?
Yeah.
I was like, he went, yeah, sure. And I was like, no shit. We're going to Madison Square Garden. And that was just unreal. I mean, what a debut as well.
Yeah.
You know, but then Arthur Soso, you know, he'd never fought on Glory before, but he's fought all over the world on some of the biggest tournaments and won them. And here we are fighting this guy who's probably thinking, I've had to wait till I'm 29, 30 to get this opportunity on Glory. I'm not going to let it slip. I'm fighting this British guy. 19 years of age, little fat kid. I'll beat him. And then Bailey just smashed it again. And I was like, wow, that's a great start to your career. But he probably hates me a little bit because I just say we hadn't even started yet. Because he hadn't. You know, he's still a baby. He still hadn't done nothing. You know, I mean, you know, that's the exciting thing about it. You know, he sat on 9 fights in Glory, but he hadn't done nothing. You know, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful to him, but I just think, you know, we have not done anything yet. You know, when I look at people like Raymond Deckers, and I'm not putting Bailey in that league at all, but I'm just thinking, you know, 200 fights.
Yeah.
You know, that's a legend. That's somebody who's achieved, you know, and that's probably somebody that Bailey, you know, he doesn't really aspire to be anybody else other than himself. But there's your role model, if you want one.
Yeah. Were you in favour of Chad's transition into boxing? I've heard you say that, you know, you've been following boxing for a long time.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting one. I wanted him to stay at Glory and win the title, man.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted him to do. I really thought he could do it, and I was desperate for him to do it because I thought, finish what you started and then go. But going back to what I said earlier, you know, as the dad and as the coach, you've got to be respectful to what your fighter wants. Because if I take him down a particular route and he doesn't want that route, then you're only going to get probably, I don't know, 89% out of him. Whereas Chad making the decision, you're going to get 100% out of him because he's made that decision. And there were some injuries which made it difficult for Chad to compete as a kickboxer, which obviously were easier to compete as a boxer. It's not as hard on the body, nowhere near. And anybody who says it is undone it, you know. It's a
You
fact.
must still watch people in that division though. When you're at the shows with Bailey and you think, Chad could beat him. You know, I wish Chad could.
He's a bigger version of Doumbé.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
On course, absolutely. I mean, look, Chad was still developing.
Yeah. I know.
You know, when he fought and beat Gronart, he was still developing. He's a monster now compared to what he was back then. He's so much more physically developed. And yet he would make that weight, that welterweight division. It would be a scary proposition. And, you know, I'm sure he could do, you know, I don't see many people beating Doumbé if Doumbé's on it. But I do look at Chad and I think, well, yeah, bigger version. You know, good big one will always beat a good little one. As long as they're as good as each other, you know, and it's all even. But I don't know. I mean, he's like, if he goes on and does what he wants to do in boxing, then unfortunately, you know, kickboxing shouldn't. He will never ever return because the money at the top level in boxing is just so much greater, and I think for Chad that's where, you know, he can get to. You know, if he stays injury free, has a little bit of luck on his side. I mean, I'll obviously try and make sure the opportunities happen, but you know, even since the fight against Pitters, you know, we got offered a fight that you probably wouldn't take because it was in Russia against some unbeaten prospect for an intercontinental title. But they're the sort of fights you go and take, and you know, you win, and then all of a sudden you're in the mix. Then, and you know, if we was injury free, then you know you could consider stuff like that. But unfortunately, you know we didn't go into the fight injury free. We definitely didn't come out of it injury free. So, you know, he'll be back. But yeah, to answer your question, I would have loved him to have just. I mean, that would have been amazing. You know, for me as a coach as well, seeing him
would
win.
Have been good to see him fight Nicky as well, because even he's went into boxing, didn't he? Pro boxing a little spell, and it would have been a good fight. That.
Yeah, it would. And you know, Nicky's a good guy, and yeah, we'd have loved.
Why is it you
fight.
think a few of them go into boxing? Is it Canolo, the other guy? Sure, he went into boxing as well. Congolo.
Yeah. Well, abroad you can hold a dual license.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
The British Boxing Board of Control weren't allowed to hold a dual license.
Right.
So
okay.
you can't kickbox and box.
Right.
That's nothing to do with the kickboxing side of things. It's the boxing side of things.
Yeah.
So you know, you have to, you know, and those that have done it have got away with it under the radar. But you know, you can't be anybody and do it.
I remember he fought Liam Smith, Beefy Smith, and
That's
Nicky,
right.
and it's like, wow, check him out getting this. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's crazy.
Do you have to as a coach, do you have to deal with promoters and negotiate purses for your fighters, or have they got like someone separate that does that?
No, that's me. So I'm managing. I mean, I'm managing Chad as a professional boxer. They only have one agreement or one contract, and that's with the manager.
Okay.
They sometimes have promotional contracts as well, but generally speaking, there's one contract which is recognised by the British Boxing Board of Control, and that's between manager and boxer. Trainers don't have a contract.
Okay.
And with all my professional fighters, or the kickboxing ones as well, I mean, I look after a few kickboxers, William Goldie Galloway, Ryan Evanson's hoping to come back soon. I manage them as well. I don't have any contract with those guys. Okay. I have an agreement where I lay down what they should expect of me, and I also lay down what I would like to expect of them. But I say to them, if you're not happy with anything I'm doing at any one point, you know, let's not continue this relationship. This is not an ego trip for me. I only want to work with people that want to work with me. So, and if they don't, and if they feel that they can do better elsewhere, then, you know, I wish them well. Genuinely wish them well, because, you know, I won't stand in anybody's way. I won't stand in my own kids' way. I won't stand in any other fighters' way. Because for me, really, it's just about having an impact on somebody, but a positive one, and not like, you know, not controlling them. You know, it's not what it's about. I mean, it's really tough right now. I mean, Goldie was on the phone to me this morning saying you got me a fight. But that's just Goldie, you know. He was sparring with Callum Smith the other week. You know, and I'm like, he just wants to have a little row with people all the time. And I said, well, come down and you can have a spar fight with your mate Bailey, because, you know, they love knocking shit out of each other. So I think we just organised that for 2 weeks on Saturday. But of course, them being elite athletes, they can do that. Yeah. You know, so I'm sure that'll be fun. Yeah. But
in terms of dealing with promoters, though, how do you find that?
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. I think I always like to put stuff in writing because I don't mind having a conversation with somebody, but if there's because sometimes people forget what they've said, sometimes interpretation of what's been said. So I always like to confirm stuff up, even if it's just in a WhatsApp message, but just something, so that people know exactly like where we're coming from. And it's a good reference point for me as well, because you know I'm only human. I'm not getting any younger. Sometimes I forget what I've said or agreed. So I always like to work on that basis, and then it just helps it for everybody. But I mean, I find most people okay as long as you deal with them professionally. I think that's the key thing. You know, when we put a fighter on a show, we always promote the arse off it. You know, we've never not, you know, tried to sell a load of tickets. You know, even if we took a fight at late notice, we try and make it as easy as possible for the promoters, because I know what it's like. It's hard work putting on a show sometimes, and you don't want to be that dick that everybody has to deal with. You know, who's like a pain in the arse. No, I don't think so. I mean, don't get me wrong. The fighter comes first. And if I feel like somebody's taking a mickey, then I will say. I mean, you know, we've had that with Regis in the boxing, where we've agreed a weight with a fighter, and then they've turned up and they've been overweight, and they've gone, well, it's not a title fight. And I went, so what? And they've stood there and went, you're just being silly, you know, it's only a couple of pounds. And I'm like, but we agreed a weight.
What's the point of having a weight class then?
And, you know, are you going to pay us more money? No? Why would we do that? And I'm like, well, come on, you're taking the mickey. And then it's like, you're just being silly now. What are you worried about? What are you worried about? And sometimes they try and like turn that on you, but, you know, it backfired on them a little bit on that case, because Regis ended up stopping their fighter who'd never been stopped before. But, you know, I think most of the time people, if you I always got taught, you treat people kindly, they'll treat you kindly back. I think that's what happens most of the time. There's a few people that might see kindness as weakness, but
when you're doing these shows, you know, the Road to Glory, I can imagine you get a lot of interest, or a lot of fighters, you know, as a possibility of entering that competition. How do you go about that as a promoter?
Best fighters. I will start from the best fighters. So if you are like one of the top guys, then you're in. If you want to be in. If they don't want to be in, then we'll just work down the list. And the best fighters, because, you know, the way I see it is, if I'm putting 8 fighters together, they've got to be able to fight ultimately on glory. Yeah, right. That's what I was going to say. So my reputation's on the line here, and my reputation is everything. So if somebody's going to come from this, so I've been put under pressure by Glory before to give them a certain weight division, and I've gone, listen, we ain't got a lot of guys in the UK at that weight. You know, like the light heavyweight division, we ain't got a lot of guys at that weight. So you want me to put eight guys together? You know, I mean, not knocking Amari, but he went in as a welterweight and won the 85 kg tournament. You know, that shouldn't be happening. You know, really, it shouldn't be happening. But there are certain divisions that are stronger than others, just because that's the way it is. You go to Holland, it's a completely different story, because they're massive. You know, they're huge. You know, Chad's like small, you know, when he goes out to Holland, but you know, here he's like, you know, one of the bigger guys, you know, in the gym, not one of the smaller guys. And I think,
is that how it comes across, or then Glory will get in touch with you and say, you know, we're lacking in this division, or
definitely. I mean, obviously, when we did the first one, which was the one Bailey was on, you know, I could have, in my relationship, probably just got Bailey in via the back door because of Chad. You know, but I thought, no, he's got to earn it. He's got to earn it.
A lot of people would do that, to be fair. They would you know, they either give him easy fights, or they...
I mean, when we did the 70 kg one, I contacted all the top guys, and I says, look, if you want to fight in Glory, this is it. It's guaranteed, 2-fight deal. This is the deal. And I know there were people who've gone on there and said, oh yeah, I won the Road to Glory and I didn't get a fight. They got offered the fights, but they didn't take them for different reasons. They didn't take them. That is nothing to do with politics. That's nothing to do with anything other than they need to speak to their manager about that, because 100%, I know for a fact they got offered the fights, it might not have suited them at that time for whatever reason, but they got offered the fights. Some of the fights that have come our way haven't necessarily suited us, but
got to take the opportunity, haven't you?
well, you have if you want to fight and you want to get on that big stage. Because unfortunately in the UK, I think we're like poor relation, aren't we? We're not a massive nation, and we don't have any. We don't have like multiple, UK glory world champions.
Yeah. Is that partly why you send, on Bailey and Chad have been to Hemmer's gym and stuff like that to spar?
Yeah, definitely, because you get to a certain level. I'm not knocking anybody else in the UK, but for Chad especially, we were like struggling to find people to push him, in the gym, and we would travel the length and breadth of the country. We've been down to London, we've been up to Liverpool, Southport, you name it, finding all the top guys, to spar with. And again, this is not knocking anybody, but 18 years of age, Chad won that 8-man tournament, and then from there he just went on and just completely grew and developed as a fighter, and it was hard work. So I thought, well, he needs to be tested. If he ain't getting tested, then how are we going to prepare
for these fights,
for these guys? So that's when we started. We went out to Hemmer's gym the first time, and then we went back out, or Chad went back out quite a few times, and to me, sparring, I'm not saying every sparring session's got to be really hard, but you've got to get tested technically, physically, mentally, in some way, shape or form. You've got to get tested.
I wanted to end with this question. It was a nice story that I heard you talk about when you were in the changing rooms in Vegas and you met the Diaz brothers.
Oh yeah. Well, I wasn't sure which one I was talking to at first. I don't know if you heard that, but I was like, it was weird because Chad had just fought, and Nick Hemmers wanted me to help with Jamal in his corner, and Julian Howes was there with Daniel Sam, and he says, "Oh, can you help me with?" They weren't fighting each other, fortunately, because that would have been awkward, running around from corner to corner. And I said, "Yeah, of course we will." So I was literally running about, and after Chad beat Grown, I didn't see him until like the end of the night. It was like the weirdest experience. And as I was running into change room, because I said to Nick, "What you got?" And I couldn't get any sense out of him at the time. I said, "I'll just go and get my gear." So once I got my gear, because I've got a bit of OCD and whatever, I thought, I've got all my corner stuff with me, I know what I've got and where it is. So I was rushing through the change rooms, and I seen them both, and it was Nick that stopped me and says, "Hey," he says, "Can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Yeah." And he went, I was like thinking, what was he going to ask me? I didn't even know what he was going to ask me. I was a bit starstruck.
Have you got a lighter or something?
And I was like, he says, "Sick tats, by the way, mate." And I was thinking, is that his question? All right. And I went, "Hey," he says, "just watch your lad fight. Good he is." He said, "Do you teach anything else? Do you do anything else? Any other styles? Or is it just kickboxing that?" And I was like, no, just kickboxing. I'm thinking, hold on a minute, Regis is an MMA fighter, but I even forgot all about him. I split back. I was like, no, just kickboxing, mate. Boxing didn't mention, MMA didn't mention. And I says, and then I thought, that's Nick Diaz. I ought to get a photograph of him, really. I says, "Any chance of a photograph?" He went, yeah, of course. And we just sort of stood there and like took a photograph, and I was like, I showed it to Chad. I went, "I've just had a photograph with Nate Diaz." He went, "That's not Nate, lad, that's Nick." I went, "Yeah, that's what I meant." But because I was rushing around and panicking a little bit, I didn't know. I literally couldn't figure out for the life of me which one it was. But it was cool. It was such a cool experience.
Anyway, so I want to thank you very much for having us down today. I really appreciate you taking time out and speak to us and stuff. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you again soon.